is YT back with another video. And I know I haven't uploaded in a while. And I know I keep on saying I'm gonna upload consistently. But I'm gonna actually for real try now. Because I just figured out how to record better videos on PlayStation and stuff, and edit a little bit and do stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to start recording more and stuff. But in today's video, we're gonna be doing a WWE 2K22 video. I haven't did a WWE 2K22 video yet, and I've only ever did a couple WWE videos. But so yeah, if you guys don't know what WWE 2K22 is, it's just like a wrestling game pretty much. And we're gonna be doing this video that I got this video idea from BDE. Brandon Does Everything. Make sure he's like my favorite WWE YouTuber, so make sure to go subscribe to him and all that good stuff. And today we're gonna be drafting one superstar in universe mode for every letter. And if there's no superstar for a letter, then we just give that one a freebie. So yeah. If you guys don't know what universe mode is, you basically could make your own custom shows and custom superstars, and they'll get automatically booked, and you simulate it for a year. It's real good stuff. So yeah, let's get into this. So for A, you feel me? I'm gonna have to go with AJ Styles or Austin Theory. Nah, I'm gonna have to go with Theory. Theory for sure, for sure. Okay, now B, and he's also the new Mr. Money in the Bank. So B, I could go for Bobby, but nah, I'm gonna go for Brock. Okay, and then don't ask me why he's champ. I just don't know. Okay, for C, I'm gonna go with Cesaro. For D, I'm gonna go with Dolph Ziggler, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. For E, I'm gonna go with Edge, another one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I'm gonna go with Finn Balor and Goldberg. And then for H, we're gonna go with Humberto Carrillo. For I, we're gonna go with Isaiah Scott. For J, we're gonna go with main event Jey Uso. Okay, for K, we're gonna go with Karrion Kross. Actually, no, let's go with Kofi. Yeah, Kofi. Then L, we're gonna go with Liv Morgan. M, we're gonna go with Montez Ford. N, we're gonna go with Naomi. O, we're gonna go with Otis. R, we're gonna go with we could go with Randy. You know what? Let's go with Riddle. Yeah, let's go with Riddle. Okay, then we get a freebie for Q. So I'm gonna go with Randy Orton for that freebie. Okay, and then for S, I'm gonna go with Seth Rollins. And then S, yep. And then we get, Seth Rollins. T, Tegan Fox. And then, Tegan Fox, T. And then X, Xavier Woods, Walter. And then we get two freebies. So I'm gonna go with Tony Storm, Shotzi, and Sheamus. And this is what our roster is looking like. Now we need to pick our champions. So I like the Red Universal Championship, so we're gonna go with that. Don't roast me on that. And so our champion is gonna start out with Montez Ford. Our US champion, we are going to start out with Dolph Ziggler. And then our Women's champion, we are gonna go with Liv Morgan. So this is what it's looking like. Now we need to edit the division. So for the Universal Championship division, we'll go with Randy, Theory, Rollins, Brock, Jey Uso, Isaiah Scott, Walter, Xavier Woods, Riddle, Otis, and Goldberg. Okay, and then in here we'll go with Finn Balor, Kofi, Sheamus, Cesaro, Humberto Carrillo, and Edge. Boom. So we have 6 competitors for this, 11 for this, and then as the Whammons, we're gonna have to go with Shotzi, Tegan Fox, and Naomi. Alright, so I'm only gonna do the go home show for stuff for pay-per-views, and then the why are we already at Fastlane? Hold up. Okay, so we're only gonna go with the go home shows for pay-per-views in the pay-per-view. Don't ask why there's a WWE symbol, and don't ask why we already have rivalries. This is kind of scuffed. So we are now at the go home show for Money in the Bank. We have a mixed tag match between Dolph Ziggler and Naomi versus Seth Rollins and Liv Morgan, Otis versus Montez Ford, Theory versus Sheamus, RK Bro versus Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Kofi, Xavier Woods versus Brock Lesnar, and Walter versus Jey Uso. Let's simulate it. Walter won in the main event. Brock Lesnar beat Xavier Woods. Kofi and Isaiah Swerve Scott beat Riddle and Randy. Sheamus beat Austin Theory. Montez Ford beat Otis. And Seth Rollins and Liv Morgan beat Dolph Ziggler and Naomi. So now we're approaching Money in the Bank, and we have Jey Uso versus Walter, Tegan Fox versus Shotzi for the Raw Women's Championship, Sheamus versus Dolph Ziggler for the United States Championship, Liv Morgan versus Naomi, and then we have a ladder match, not for the Money in the Bank, between Finn Balor, Edge, Cesaro, Humberto Carrillo, Pete Dunne. I don't know why Pete Dunne's on here. Kevin Owens, Riddle, and Xavier Woods. And then we have Randy Orton versus AJ Styles, Seth Rollins versus Kofi for the Universal Championship. I thought I said it at Montez. Did Montez lose it on like Raw or something? We didn't see it. And then we have another 8-man ladder match. For some reason, these aren't for the Money in the Bank. Between Brock Lesnar, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Austin Theory, Goldberg, Montez Ford, Otis, Roman Reigns, and John Cena, who are not even on here. So I'm going to be mad and what if I win. And Montez Ford won. Kofi is the Universal Champion. Yeah, I guess. Randy Orton beat AJ Styles. Riddle won the other ladder match. Naomi beat Liv Morgan. Sheamus is the new United States Champion. Tegan Fox is the new Raw Women's Champion. And Walter beat Jey Uso. So now we move on to the go home show for Backlash. We have Sheamus versus Cesaro, Montez Ford versus Otis, Austin Theory and Walter, Austin Theory versus Walter versus Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Kofi. We have RK Bro versus Johnny Gargano and Edge. Johnny Gargano's not even on the roster. Jey Uso versus Brock Lesnar, and Seth Rollins versus Goldberg. And so Goldberg won. Brock Lesnar beat Jey Uso. Johnny Gargano and Edge beat Randy Orton and Riddle, which they weren't even supposed to. Johnny Gargano's not even on here. And then Kofi won the Fatal 4-Way. Otis beat Montez Ford, and Sheamus beat Cesaro. So now we are at Backlash. We have Finn Balor versus Sheamus for the United States Championship, Cesaro versus Dolph Ziggler, Shotzi versus Tegan Fox for the Raw Women's Championship, Montez Ford versus Otis, Humberto Carrillo versus Edge, Austin Theory versus Walter, Jey Uso versus Rey Mysterio. I didn't even put him on the roster. Brock Lesnar versus Isaiah Swerve Scott, Seth Rollins versus Kofi, and Goldberg versus Xavier Woods. So Goldberg won. Kofi Kingston is still the Universal Champion. Brock Lesnar beat Isaiah Swerve Scott. Jey Uso beat Rey Mysterio. Austin Theory beat Walter. Edge beat Humberto Carrillo. Montez Ford beat Otis. Shotzi is the new Raw Women's Champion. Dolph Ziggler beat Cesaro. Sheamus retains the United States Championship. Okay, so now we are at the Go Home show for Extreme Freaking Rules. We have Xavier Woods versus Goldberg, Montez Ford versus Otis, Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Kofi, Austin Theory versus Brock Lesnar, Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins, and Sheamus and Cesaro versus Randy Orton and Riddle. So in the main event, Riddle and Randy Orton won. It was a handicap match, I guess, since 8 minutes left. Seth Rollins beat Jey Uso. Austin Theory beat Brock Lesnar. That's a surprise. Kofi beat Swerve. Montez beat Otis. And Xavier and Goldberg had a draw/no contest. So now we are going to Horror Show Extreme Rules. We have Finn Balor versus Edge, Montez Ford versus Otis, Austin Theory versus Jey Uso, Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa. I don't know why he's here. Goldberg versus Xavier Woods, Cesaro versus Sheamus. Extreme Rules match for the United States Championship. Brock Lesnar versus Swerve. Kofi versus Rollins for the Universal Championship. And then Extreme Rules match, Tegan Fox versus Shotzi for the Raw Women's Championship. So Tegan Fox is the Raw Women's Champion, retains. Kofi retains. Brock Lesnar beat Swerve. Sheamus retains. Kofi beat Goldberg. Walter beat Tommaso Ciampa. Jey Uso beat Austin Theory. Otis beat Montez Ford. And Finn Balor beat Edge. So now we are heading to the Go Home show for SummerSlam. We have a tag team match. Kofi and Xavier versus Orton and Riddle. Jey Uso versus Otis. A mixed gender tag match between Montez Ford and Naomi versus Dolph Ziggler and Liv Morgan. Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Brock Lesnar. A triple threat between Goldberg, Austin Theory, and Seth Rollins. And then we have Cesaro versus Edge in the main event. It was a draw/no contest. Sheamus got involved. Austin Theory won the triple threat, which he's picking up a lot of momentum recently. Brock Lesnar beat Swerve. Dolph Ziggler and Liv Morgan beat Montez Ford and Naomi. Otis beat Jey Uso. And RK Bro beat The New Day. I should have put tag team things in this. And now, oh shoot, I skipped SummerSlam by accident. Okay, I skipped SummerSlam by accident, so we gotta check the news. Do we have any new champions? Liv Morgan's the Raw Women's Champion. And that's the only new champion we had from SummerSlam. So that's okay, I guess. So we had Montez Ford versus Goldberg on the Go Home show for Payback, I believe. Shotzi and Tegan Fox versus Naomi and Liv Morgan. Jey Uso versus Isaiah Swerve Scott. Kofi versus Randy. Austin Theory versus Seth Rollins. And Cesaro versus Edge in the main event. Cesaro beat Edge. Seth Rollins beat Austin Theory. Kofi beat Randy Orton. Swerve beat Jey Uso. Shotzi and Tegan Fox won against Liv Morgan and Naomi. And Goldberg beat Montez. So now we are heading to Payback. This is a big pay-per-view. So we have Finn Balor versus Edge, Humberto Carrillo versus Dolph Ziggler, Austin Theory versus Otis, Randy Orton Riddle versus Kofi and Xavier Woods, Montez Ford versus Jey Uso, Cesaro versus Sheamus for the United States Championship, Walter versus Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Seth Rollins in a triple threat, Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, and Tegan Fox versus Liv Morgan in the main event for the Raw Women's Championship. And Tegan Fox is the new Raw Women's Champion 3-time, I believe. Brock Lesnar beat Goldberg. Walter won the triple threat. Sheamus retains the United States Championship. Montez Ford beat Jey Uso. New Day beat RK Bro. Otis beat Austin Theory. Dolph Ziggler beat Humberto Carrillo. And Edge beat Finn Balor. So now we are heading to the Go Home show for Clash of Champions. We have Walter versus Edge. Montez Ford versus Dolph Ziggler. Jey Uso versus Otis versus Brock Lesnar in a triple threat. Seth Rollins versus Goldberg. New Day versus RK Bro again. And we have Finn Balor versus Sheamus. So Sheamus beat Finn Balor in the main event. Randy Orton and Riddle beat Kofi and Xavier Woods. It was a draw/no contest between Seth Rollins and Goldberg. Brock Lesnar won the triple threat. I'm not surprised. Montez Ford beat Otis Montez Ford, not Otis, I meant Dolph Ziggler. And then Walter lost to Edge. So now we are at Clash of Champions Gold Rush. We have Edge versus Finn Balor, Liv Morgan versus Naomi, Shotzi versus Tegan Fox for the Raw Women's Championship, Swerve versus Jey Uso, Austin Theory versus Seth Rollins, Montez Ford versus Walter, RK Bro versus New Day, Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, and in the main event, Sheamus versus Cesaro for the United States Championship. Sheamus won the United States Championship. Sheamus retains. Brock Lesnar beat Goldberg. New Day beat RK Bro. Montez Ford beat Walter. Seth Rollins beat Theory. Jey Uso beat Isaiah Swerve Scott. Tegan Fox retains. Liv Morgan beat Naomi. And Edge beat Finn Balor. So now we are heading to the Go Home show for Hell in a Cell, my birth month, October. We have Jey Uso versus Walter, Austin Theory versus Otis, Riddle and Naomi versus Liv Morgan and Montez Ford, New Day versus Seth Rollins and Isaiah Swerve Scott, Sheamus versus Edge, and the main event, Brock Lesnar versus Dolph Ziggler. Brock Lesnar won. Edge beat Sheamus. Swerve and Seth Rollins beat New Day. Riddle and Naomi beat Montez Ford and Liv Morgan. Austin Theory beat Otis, and Jey Uso beat Walter. So now we are heading to Hell in a Cell. So we have Montez Ford versus Goldberg, Naomi versus Liv Morgan, Shotzi versus Tegan Fox for the Raw Women's Championship, Swerve versus Austin Theory, Cesaro versus Humberto Carrillo, Finn Balor versus Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins versus Walter, Edge versus Sheamus, and Brock Lesnar versus Kofi in the main event. What a match. And Kofi retains his Raw, his Universal Championship. Sheamus retains his United States Championship. Seth Rollins beat Walter. Finn Balor beat Dolph Ziggler. Cesaro beat Humberto Carrillo. Swerve beat Austin Theory. Tegan Fox retains the Raw Women's Championship. Naomi beat Liv Morgan. And Goldberg beat Montez Ford. So now we are going to the Go Home show for Survivor Series. And we have Jey Uso versus Walter, Otis versus Austin Theory, Montez Ford and Naomi versus Riddle and Liv Morgan, Swerve versus Kofi, Edge versus Seth, and we have an 8-man elimination tag match, Brock Lesnar's team versus Dolph Ziggler's team, And Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and Humberto Carrillo won. Edge beat Seth Rollins. Kofi beat Swerve. Montez Ford and Naomi beat Riddle and Liv Morgan. Austin Theory beat Otis. And Walter beat Jey Uso. So now we are heading to Survivor freaking Series. We only have a few more pay-per-views left. We have in the 8-man elimination tag match, Dolph Ziggler's team versus Brock Lesnar's team again. Shotzi versus Liv Morgan. Walter versus Otis. Naomi versus Tegan Fox for the Raw Women's Championship. Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Kofi for the Universal Championship. Seth Rollins versus Jey Uso. Edge versus Sheamus for the United States Championship. In the main event, Theory versus Montez Ford. Just a random match, I guess. And Montez Ford beat Theory. Edge beat Sheamus, so Edge is the new United States champion. Rollins beat Jey Uso. Kofi retains. Naomi's the new Raw Women's Champion. Walter beat Otis. Liv Morgan beat Shotzi. And Dolph Ziggler's team won 2 times in a row. Which I'm surprised because they have Brock Lesnar on their team. But I guess their team was just, too good. So now we're going to the go home show for TLC, the last pay-per-view of the year. We have Randy Orton and Riddle versus Xavier Woods and Kofi, Naomi versus Liv Morgan, Edge versus Humberto Carrillo, Austin Theory versus Goldberg, Montez Ford versus Brock Lesnar, and Finn Balor versus Otis. Potential rivalry. Otis beat Finn Balor, Brock Lesnar beat Montez Ford, Goldberg beat Austin Theory, Humberto Carrillo beat Edge, Naomi beat Liv Morgan in a potential rivalry, and New Day beat RK Bro. So now we are heading to TLC, like I said, the last pay-per-view of the year. Then we have the Rumble. So we have Finn Balor versus Dolph Ziggler in the opening match. Theory versus Otis. A triple threat between Tegan Fox, Shotzi, and Naomi. Our first triple threat for the Raw Women's Championship. Walter versus Montez Ford. Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Jey Uso. Humberto Carrillo versus Edge. His first title opportunity, I'm pretty sure. Cesaro versus Sheamus. Goldberg versus Seth Rollins. And Brock Lesnar versus Kofi in the main event for the Universal Championship. And Kofi retains. Goldberg beat Seth Rollins. Sheamus beat Cesaro. Edge retains. Swerve beat Jey Uso. Montez Ford beat Walter. Tegan Fox is the new Raw Women's Champion. Austin Theory beat Otis. And Dolph Ziggler beat Finn Balor. So now we're going to the go-home show for the Rumble. We have Austin Theory versus Seth Rollins, Kofi and Naomi versus Riddle and Liv Morgan, Montez Ford versus Walter, Edge versus Cesaro, Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Xavier Woods versus Brock Lesnar in a triple threat, Otis versus Goldberg in the main event. It was a draw / no contest. Swerve won the triple threat. I'm pretty surprised about that. Cesaro beat Edge. Walter beat Montez Ford. Riddle and Liv Morgan beat Kofi and Naomi. And then Seth Rollins beat Theory. So now we move on to the Royal Rumble. This is a big match. Someone's getting a title opportunity at Mania. Seth Rollins versus Austin Theory. We have Montez Ford versus Isaiah Swerve Scott. Liv Morgan versus Naomi for the Raw Women's Championship. A last man standing match between Jey Uso and Otis. A men's Royal Rumble match. Humberto Carrillo versus Edge for the United States Championship. Dolph Ziggler versus Finn Balor. Goldberg versus Walter. And the main event, Kofi versus Brock. Kofi retains. Walter beat Goldberg. Finn Balor beat Dolph Ziggler. Edge retains. And we'll have to check that in the news. Otis beat Jey Uso. Naomi retains, I believe. Montez Ford beat Swerve. And Seth Rollins beat Theory. So now let's check the news and let's see who won the Rumble. So the Rumble had been won by Goldberg. So Goldberg will have a shot at the title at Mania. So now we are approaching the go-home show for Fastlane. So we have Montez Ford versus Walter, Austin Theory versus Finn Balor, Naomi versus Tegan Fox, Edge versus Sheamus, Jey Uso versus Rollins, and in the main event, Kofi versus Brock in a rivalry match. Kofi beat Brock. Seth Rollins beat Jey Uso. Edge beat Sheamus. It was a draw / no contest between Naomi and Tegan Fox. Finn Balor beat Austin Theory, and then Walter beat Montez Ford. So now the last pay-per-view, we are approaching the last pay-per-view before Mania. We have Xavier Woods versus Randy Orton, Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Jey Uso, Liv Morgan versus Naomi, Cesaro versus Sheamus, Humberto Carrillo versus Finn Balor, Seth Rollins versus Montez Ford, Dolph Ziggler versus Edge for the United States Championship, Goldberg versus Kofi for the Universal Championship. He's not even waiting till Mania to get his title match. Brock Lesnar versus Walter in the main event, no holds barred. I bet that was a crazy good match. But Brock Lesnar beat Walter in the main event. Kofi retains his championship. Edge retains his championship against Dolph Ziggler. Montez Ford beat Seth Rollins. Finn Balor beat Humberto Carrillo. Sheamus beat Cesaro, and Naomi beat Liv Morgan. Jey Uso beat Swerve, and Xavier Woods beat Randy Orton. So now this is the biggest Raw. We have the Raw Go Home show for WrestleMania. We have Theory versus Seth Rollins, Montez Ford versus Otis, Jey Uso versus Walter, Edge versus Cesaro versus Sheamus in a triple threat, RK Bro versus Xavier Woods and Kofi. And we have Naomi versus Tegan Fox in the main event. It was a draw / no contest. RK Bro beat New Day. Sheamus won the triple threat. Walter beat Jey Uso. Montez Ford beat Otis, and Seth Rollins beat Austin Theory, his former disciple. So now we move on to Wrestlemania. Let's see what we got here. We got Seth Rollins versus Jey Uso in the opening match. Walter versus Swerve. Tegan Fox versus Shotzi. Liv Morgan versus Naomi. That means we have no title match. Raw Women's title match. We have Humberto Carrillo versus Cesaro, Riddle versus Xavier Woods, Randy Orton versus Otis, Finn Balor versus Sheamus, Brock Lesnar versus Montez Ford, United States Championship match between Edge and Dolph Ziggler, and the main event, Goldberg versus Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston retains his Universal title, Edge retains his United States title, Montez Ford beat Brock Lesnar. I'm pretty surprised about that. Finn Balor beat Sheamus. Randy Orton beat Otis. Xavier Woods beat Riddle. Cesaro beat Humberto Carrillo. Liv Morgan beat Naomi. Shotzi beat Tegan Fox. Walter beat Swerve and Seth Rollins. Jey Uso beat Seth Rollins in the opening match. So now it's time to check and see who was the most successful superstar in this. So let's see, Naomi's the champ, right? Let's see, she is. So Naomi held the championship 3 times, and she held it for 210 days total. Okay, and then we have Edge. So Edge won it 2 times, and he held it for 130. And then we gotta check Kofi. So Kofi won it once and held it for 300 days. So he only had to do it once, and he held it for 300, which that's pretty much literally that's literally the whole year. So the most successful superstar in this was Kofi Kingston and Naomi. Kofi Kingston pretty much. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, shout out to Brandon Collins, of course, BDE, and me and him have the same last name, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get 50 subscribers, bro. I've been doing YouTube for 5 years now, and I know I don't upload consistently, but I'm only at 20 or less. So yeah, like I said, like and subscribe, and peace.